David, thank you so much for being here at NCSL's Legislative Summit. Could you introduce yourself and tell us who you're with?
Sure. I'm David Becker. I'm the Director of Election Initiatives for the Pew Charitable Trust.
Now, Pew has been known as a real leader in voter registration over the past few years. Could you tell us a little bit about your work?
Well, we started our work nearly a decade ago, really looking to solve the problems that exist with voter registration in the United States with the voter lists. And those problems largely relate to the fact that the American people are very mobile. They move quite often. About 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 Americans moves in any given year. About 30% of all Americans move at least once within a 4-year presidential election cycle. And this causes a lot of problems in the voter rolls because while people know that they have to go to motor vehicles once they move and change their address, or if they get married or get divorced and change their name, they have to go to motor vehicles. They usually don't think of doing something with their voter registration at that point in time. And so what that means is often that voter rolls lag behind the mobility and the other life events that can affect the accuracy of those lists. So for instance, if someone moved in December of 2012, it's very unlikely any election official will know about it until October 2016 at the earliest.
Well, let's talk a little bit about voter list maintenance. States are increasingly trying to keep up with their mobile voters. How can states really track voters across state lines?
So this is one of the things we were trying to do over the course of that time. We brought together a lot of experts in the field, state and local election officials, researchers, tech experts, and tried to solve that exact problem, which is how do you keep up with the mobility of the American people over time so that election officials aren't just reactive, they can actually kind of take charge of their lists and make sure they're as accurate as possible, which is important, of course, because the list, the address on that list, is how election officials notify their voters about when there's an election, what's on the ballot, where and how they can vote. So having that information is really, really important. It's also important to campaigns, of course, because many campaigns use the list to reach out to voters to try to get them to turn out. So one of the biggest challenges, of course, is finding out if people move across state lines, because there's no easy way for states to share that information. As a result of some of the work we did with these experts, we helped develop something called the Electronic Registration Information Center, or ERIC. You can find information on it at ericstates.org, E-R-I-C states.org. And what ERIC is a sophisticated data center where states who choose to participate, and it's entirely voluntary, they upload information into that data center every 60 days or so from their voter lists, from their motor vehicles files, and that information gets matched in a very sophisticated a very sophisticated piece of software matches all of that information, along with things like national change of address data and Social Security death data. And what the states get back is a list of people who moved from the address that they have on file, either within their state or into another state, or also people who might have moved, who might have died.
Now, what trends do you see and expect to continue as states prepare for? Some states have elections this year in 2015, but we're going into a presidential year in 2016. What do you expect to see as far as voter registration trends in states?
Well, we've made 3 recommendations over time, and I think we've seen increases in how states have adopted all 3 of those recommendations. The first recommendation we made many years ago was that states adopt online voter registration. And of course, the Presidential Commission on Election Administration, bipartisan commission, also recommended online voter registration. And that is now a trend that is overtaking the entire country, which is a very good thing for voters and a very good thing for election officials and taxpayers. Back in 2008, there were only 2 states that offered online voter registration to their voters. By 2016, well over half the states will offer online voter registration to their voters. Right now, there's 21 states in D.C. that do so. Several other states are building systems. About half of all Americans who are eligible to vote have access to online voter registration, which is incredibly convenient for the voters and leads to much more accurate lists while saving a lot of money for the taxpayers as well. So that's the first trend we're really seeing, and that's not stopping. I mean, at some point, we're going to have all 50 states adopting online voter registration. The sooner the better, given how well it's worked in the states that have it. I mentioned ERIC. We're seeing more and more states joining ERIC. We expect several more to join later this year. Currently, there are 12 states plus D.C. that participate in ERIC, and these are states that are Western and Eastern, red, blue, and purple. Very important for any reform that it not be ideological, it not be driven by partisanship, that it be driven about good governance, and all of the reforms that we recommend save taxpayers money, lead to more accurate and efficient election practices, and more convenient voting experience for the voters as well. So ERIC, we expect to see more states join that as well. Right now, about 38 million or so eligible voters live in states that comprise ERIC. We expect that number by the time of the 2016 election to at least double, perhaps even triple. And then finally, one really great trend in government overall, and certainly in the election field that we're seeing, is the move away from the 19th century technology of paper to the 21st century digital technologies. And so one of the ways that we're seeing this in the elections field is when people go into motor vehicles agencies, they're in most states required to be offered an opportunity to register to vote. It's called Motor Voter. This law has been around for over 20 years now, but in many states this is still a very paper-driven process. It's very inefficient. This leads to problems for DMVs, it leads to problems for election offices, and it leads to problems for voters because there can be inaccuracies in the taking a paper record and translating into a digital record. So what some states are doing, Delaware is probably most notable for this, is they've created a streamlined pathway for voters who are in the motor vehicles agency, who might be getting a new license, who might have come of age, who might have moved, whatever. And the process for them to get registered to vote is so simple and so quick, and the data is transferred electronically directly to election officials to be processed into their statewide voter registration database. They're seeing cost savings, they're seeing accuracies, they're seeing efficiencies from the perspective not just of election offices and DMVs, but also from the voters' perspective, because they're not seeing the problems they used to find. So I think those three things, this automated motor voter being the third, is a big trend that we're going to see more and more states doing. We've been talking with states like West Virginia and New Mexico who are doing very similar things, and this is a wonderful trend that I think is voters are really going to appreciate, wonder why they were ever doing something by paper before, when now it's just so easy and seamless from a digital perspective.
Great. Now, tell us where we can go to get more information about Pew's work on this.
Sure. You can always go to our website, which is pewtrusts.org. That's trusts plural, /elections. You can find our elections page, which has all the information on our work on elections. We do other things. We work on things like the Voting Information Project, which is our partnership with Google to get information to voters on where to vote and what's on their ballot. We also put out every 2 years an assessment of how well states are performing in election administration. We call it our Elections Performance Index. Next one is scheduled to be released in the first half of next year, looking back at 2014. And so all that information is on our website, and we encourage people to go and check it out.
David, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks a
really
lot.
appreciate it.